So he says to not be angry back. It's simple. It's so simple. You're just not angry back. But do you think it would work if you were condescending and if you were demonstrating in a holier-than-thou manner that I'm not small like you and I don't get angry like you do? Do you think it would work then? No, because then there's something extra. Then it's not simple anymore. Then you're doing two things. You're not being angry, but you're showing them how great you are for not being angry. That's extra. The whole idea with WEI is simplicity, not putting the extra stuff in there, right? So your motivation has to be pure. You have to truly love the gentleness, and you have to truly want to not be a part of it. It's like when somebody cuts you off on the freeway. You know, there's a tendency to get mad and to take it personally. But you have to remember that they don't know you from Adam. You can almost feel sorry for them because they probably have a horrible job with a boss that's down their necks, watching them all the time, and they're going to get busted if they walk in 1 minute late. How would you like to have a job like that? So with compassion, you can say, go, knock yourself out, get there. I hope you get there. You know, and I hope you get through your day, because it doesn't sound like a nice day, right? It sounds like a stressful day because you're already under stress. But mean it, all right? That's the trick. I think that it doesn't work when you walk away and refuse to talk. But it works better when you allow the energy to kind of play itself out, and you're there, and you're present, and you're listening without being condescending. That's the whole trick. You know? So, yeah, it's a little bit like reverse psychology. It's a little bit what Patanjali in the Yoga Sutras called opposite action, to practice opposite action. You might feel that familiar habitual reflex of repulsion or anger or something like that. But then when you do the opposite, you're in a sense cultivating a new kind of habit. It's kind of like when the Zen master says, act as if. You might say, well, then aren't you being fake? You are being fake if you're being condescending and your heart is not pure. But you're not being fake if you're genuinely practicing and you're training yourself in a new kind of energy, in a new kind of habit. Because once you start walking differently and talking differently, you're already training yourself differently, just like an athlete trains himself to run properly and to swim differently, you know, so that he can be more efficient. You're training yourself. You're reconditioning yourself, because we're a product of our conditioning anyway, right? And so you're allowing yourself to experience a new reality, because the universe responds to you once you have acted in a different way. You see that other people are responding to you in a different way. And you're experiencing now a new kind of reality. Experientially, you're experiencing it. And so you're conditioning yourself into a new kind of behavior. You're responding in turn to the new world around you, and they're responding to you, and things are different, and so it's a whole series of reconditioning. So it diffuses the situation, it reconditions, it nurtures simple action. WEI nurtures simple action, spontaneous action. It's much like what we were reading about in the context of Suzuki. There's no strain. It's gentle, no strain. That's a key phrase, no strain. No strain. It's kind of contrary to a lot of what we're taught in the West, I think. You know, we hear this no pain, no gain kind of thing. And it's kind of interesting. It's not to say that that's all bad. I'm sure, you know, there are situations where persistence pays. It's not saying that there's never room for persistence. But it's interesting to look at that and to see how in many ways there seems to be a very different kind of approach at work here. Because we're saying, you know, is there a gentler way where I can still accomplish the thing, whatever the task is, without all of that extra, the extra stuff that causes the injuries, the pain, the heat, the anger, all the extra stuff. That's where the creativity comes from, in creative quietude. Is there a gentler way, a way in which there's less strain? And so the challenge is to find that way. A lot of times, we use very violent methods to try to achieve some goal. I think the pharmaceutical industry is a good example of that. Alan Watts, I introduced you to Alan Watts via video, says we're trying to have our yin without the yang and pleasure without pain, so that we'll invent, pill after pill after pill after pill in this multi-billion-dollar industry to try to figure out how we can be happy all the time, right? As if. But in fact, we end up causing more pain in the long run because the side effects are worse than the original problem in most cases, right? Have you seen those drug advertisements where the guy with the monotone voice who speaks real fast rattles off the positive side effects, and you're thinking, oh my God, my feet could fall off, and they're trying to sell this thing to me so that I won't be depressed anymore, but I don't want my feet to fall off. And so you realize there's a kind of violence there, there's a kind of forcing there. It's a straining to have, to get what can't be. And it brings us back to that relativity again, because if we realize, well, there's this natural kind of ebb and flow to the universe, and maybe if I would accept that and kind of move in it without so much strain, without so much fighting, I could stay afloat. What do you think? So we have relativity, we have WEI. I'm going to put another term on the board, emptiness. We learned about emptiness in the context of Zen, right? And here we revisit the notion. There are a lot of parallels, but the teaching takes a different approach. Lao Tzu likes to use the metaphor of the uncarved block, and when we look at the Tao Te Ching together, we'll see what he means by the uncarved block. What does that sound like to you, the uncarved block?
It's something that hasn't been touched in body. It's what it is. No, it's something that can have multiple meanings. Still open to.
Open.
It's like a step to whatever it wants to be.
Open to anything. Okay. It's not walking around with its agenda. With what the Zen masters would call, it's picking and choosing mind. It's dualistic mind. Instead, it has what Suzuki would call the big mind, the beginner's mind. Yeah? But for Lao Tzu, the metaphor he loved to use was the uncarved block. This openness, the emptiness. It's also in the context of Daoism, this willingness to see that the void is the source of creativity, the creativity we've been talking about. That the void is not something to get rid of, but instead something to cherish. It gives rise to all that is. It gives rise to the 10,000 things, another metaphor he loves to use. Those are two metaphors Lao Tzu loves to use. The uncarved block and the 10,000 things. And it's that emptiness that gives rise to the 10,000 things. What are the 10,000 things? Well, it's everything. It's all your thoughts, and it's your backpack, and it's your house, and your pens. It's your schedule. It's everything. It's you, whatever you are. Emptiness is that void that is the source of this quiet kind of value, like the space within a cup. The cup wouldn't be valuable without the space, or the interior, the hub of a wheel, another oft-used metaphor in Taoism. You couldn't have the wheel without that space in the center.